The baby elephant hadn't opened his eyes in days, not because he wouldn't, but because he couldn't. He was blind, alone, and slowly dying. The caretakers had already started losing hope. Some had stopped speaking when they passed his enclosure. Others lingered, silently, as if watching him fade away. Because sometimes silence is the only thing left when you know you're about to lose a life. The African sun was beginning to set over the vast golden savanna of Kenya, painting the sky in deep orange and fading red. Inside the elephant orphanage, that warm light didn't feel comforting. It felt heavy, like the entire place was holding its breath. In the far corner of the sanctuary, separated from the others, lay a tiny baby elephant. His name was Timbo, just 3 weeks old, and already life had taken everything from him. His small gray body was curled tightly into itself, trembling on the dusty ground. Every rib showed through his fragile skin. His legs looked too weak to even carry his own weight. Each breath came slower than the last, like his body was forgetting how to keep going. But what broke everyone's heart the most were his eyes. They stayed shut, not in sleep, but in darkness. A severe infection had destroyed them completely. Timbo was blind. 5 days earlier, rangers had found him standing beside his mother's body. She had been killed. Poachers. For ivory. And the baby elephant, too small to understand death, had stayed there, waiting, nudging her, calling to her in the only way he knew how, hoping she would wake up. But she never did. By the time rescuers reached him, the damage was already done. The infection had spread, his vision gone forever. The veterinarians worked for hours to save his life. They succeeded. But saving his body wasn't enough, because something inside him had already broken. After losing his mother, Timbo stopped fighting. He refused milk, turned away from touch, didn't respond to voices, didn't react to movement.
It was like the darkness around him had slowly crept inside his heart. The caretakers tried everything. They played recordings of mother elephants calling their calves. Nothing. They brought in a calm, nurturing female elephant, one who had helped other orphans before. Still nothing. Timbo didn't move, didn't react, didn't care. Even the most experienced veterinarian at the sanctuary, Dr. Mangy, had never seen anything like it. This wasn't just illness. This was grief. Pure, silent, devastating grief. And with every passing hour, Timbo was getting closer to death. Because a baby elephant that doesn't eat, doesn't survive. The whispers began quietly. At first, no one wanted to say it out loud. But eventually, the truth made its way into the room. If he kept refusing food, they might have no choice but to let him go, to end his suffering. The words hung in the air like something no one wanted to breathe in. No one argued, because deep down, everyone knew they were running out of time. Until that same evening, something unexpected happened. At a small animal shelter not far from the orphanage, a black Labrador had just been brought in. His name was Shadow, and he carried a story of loss, just as heavy. He had belonged to a wildlife guide, a man known for protecting both animals and his land. But one night, everything changed. The man was attacked while trying to drive lions away from his livestock. He didn't survive. And Shadow had been there. After his owner died, the dog refused to leave the spot where it happened. Day after day, he stayed there, waiting, refusing food, refusing comfort, just lying in silence, as if time itself had stopped for him. Eventually, the shelter workers had no choice but to bring him in. But even there, he didn't change. He barely ate, barely moved, just lay there, grieving. Dr. Mangy stood outside his kennel that evening, watching him. A dog who had lost everything. A dog who understood pain. And suddenly, an idea entered his mind. An idea that made no sense. That broke every rule. What if the one creature who could reach Timbo Wasn't another elephant? What if it was someone who understood loss, just like him? The next morning, despite warnings, despite doubts, they decided to try. Shadow was brought into the observation room. The staff gathered behind the glass, watching closely. No one spoke. No one knew what would happen. Timbo lay in the same position, still, weak, fading. Shadow stepped into the room slowly. He stopped a few feet away, looked at the tiny elephant, and then he did something no one expected. He didn't bark, didn't rush forward, didn't try to sniff or nudge him. Instead, Shadow quietly lowered himself onto the ground and lay there, still, calm, present. Then he made a sound, so soft it almost didn't exist. A gentle hum, low, steady, comforting. Not a bark, not a whine, something else, something deeper. The room froze. No one moved. For the first time in days, Timbo reacted. His ears twitched, just slightly. Then again, his breathing shifted, slowed, and then, slowly, the tiny elephant lifted his trunk, weakly, uncertainly, reaching out, toward the sound, toward something he couldn't see, but could feel. The caretakers held their breath. Shadow didn't move. He just stayed there, making that same soft sound, waiting, letting Timbo come to him. The small trunk reached forward, trembling in the air, until finally, it touched him. The moment it did, something changed. Timbo didn't pull away. He didn't freeze. Instead, he leaned forward, closer, resting his trunk gently against Shadow's body. And for the first time, in 5 days, he didn't feel alone. Tears filled the eyes of the staff watching behind the glass, because what they were witnessing wasn't just interaction. It was connection, pure, silent, understanding. 2 souls, broken in the same way, finding each other. From that moment on, everything began to change. Shadow stayed with Timbo, hour after hour, day after day. He would lie beside him, making that same soft hum, sometimes resting his head near Timbo's body, sometimes gently nudging him, never forcing, never overwhelming, just being there. And slowly, Timbo started to respond. At first, small things, a movement, a shift in posture. Then, one day, he drank a little milk, just a little, but it was enough, because it meant he was choosing to live. The caretakers couldn't believe it. The elephant who had completely given up was fighting again. And it wasn't medicine. It wasn't treatment. It was connection. It was comfort. It was love. Days turned into weeks. Timbo grew stronger. His body slowly regained weight. His steps became steadier. And even though he would never see the world, he had found a way to feel it again. Through sound, through presence, through shadow. The blind baby elephant who was once ready to die was now following a dog, trusting him, finding safety in him. And Shadow, the dog who had lost his owner, had found a new purpose, a new reason to live. Because sometimes, healing doesn't come from those who are whole. It comes from those who are broken in the same way and understand without needing words. And in the quiet heart of the African savanna, 2 lives that were falling apart saved each other, not with strength, not with power, but with something far more powerful, understanding, and that changed everything.